you're seeing the little red dot up in the corner, that means that I still am. So I'll give people just a couple minutes to catch on, and I'm gonna get on my phone to make sure I don't miss any comments. And then I'll start going over what we're gonna be doing today. All right, so today I'm going to be doing a tie-dye with alcohol inks. So what I have is a cup that I prepped matte white, and I've tried this with matte and with gloss. I would definitely recommend using a matte, because if you use a gloss, it's not going to soak up the inks like you want. Hey, we're doing a tie-dye. With some alcohol inks and some paintbrushes. So I have Botanical, this one's Indigo right here, and then I have this one is Pool, it's just like a pretty light blue. This one is Magenta, and then this one is Orange, and this one is Cadmium Yellow. So, and then I also have just some thin paintbrushes. You can clean these with alcohol and a cup after, so you can reuse them. I just try to kind of, how it stains the tips, I just kind of keep with the same colors if I use it again, just in case the color isn't 100% out of your brush. Yeah, that is a wicked pretty color. I love that color. Let me just get these in the right order, so that way I don't put them wrong. Because I'm going to be starting with the lightest color when I do it, because that way when I'm painting it and I overlap, it doesn't bleed into the other color and make some weird colors that you don't want going on. So I also have just a paper towel in case I get too much ink, and parchment paper. And I've used a couple of different things to put my ink on kind of before I apply it to here, and I like using parchment the best. I think it works. It kind of gets a little bit thicker on there as it's sitting, and you just have a lot more control kind of how much you get on your brush. The larger bottles, these are the Brie Reese ones. I believe I got these at Michael's, but I think you could even probably get them on Amazon if I'm not mistaken. You can order them online too. So I like to keep my cup on my spinner arm. That way when I'm painting and stuff, if I have to turn it, the inks do dry pretty fast, but that way you kind of don't have to brush against your cup with your hands very frequently. Even better, I love buy one get one. And these come in 3-packs as well. They don't sell these, or they may now. They don't sell these individually. They sell them in 3-packs. So that's the only downfall, is I ended up with a couple colors that I don't know if I'll ever use. But hopefully I'll find something to use them for. But they definitely weren't my favorite colors. Alright, so let me see. I think I'll use this one to start. And I'm going to start with, like I said, the lightest color. So I'm going to start with my yellow. Yeah, they're actually, they're fun to do too if you get like a matte paint, and you can actually put them on with a sponge like watercolors, and you can kind of spray them with alcohol and give them like a watercolor look too. That's really fun to do as well. So I'm just going to take my ink, and I'm just going to put some on my parchment paper. And I've tried using freezer paper and stuff like that too. I'm not sure, I mean, I know what the difference is, but I just like the way it kind of sits on top of the parchment paper, and you could really just kind of get just a little tiny bit on there. You don't want your brush super wet. You probably can't see how wet this is, but this is very wet. So I'm going to actually brush a little bit of it off, because you just want to barely put the tip of your brush in there. That way when you put it on your cup, sorry, I'm making a mess. That way when you put it on your cup, it doesn't spider from having so much on there. you can, when it comes to the spiral or whatever design you're using, you can try to make a spiral with something. Some people have said they use like a pencil or whatever the case might be. I don't usually do that because I get worried that you're going to see it after you're done painting. So I just kind of eyeball it, because even with a real tie-dye, nothing is symmetrical. So I'm just going to start in the middle and just kind of freehand work my way out. So I'm going to start small in the middle with my lines, and then as I work out, they're going to kind of gradually get bigger. And I'll show you what to do too. If you may get a little bit too much ink on your brush, you can always go back, and inks are pretty forgiving, as in you can kind of make more brush strokes. So I'm going to start, like I said, just kind of freehand it. So I'm going to start with little tiny strokes. And then kind of as I work out, they're going to get bigger and bigger. And I'm going to go kind of wide with this because I do have all of these other colors to fit in as well. And you don't have to worry about all of these being lined up. It's actually a little bit better if they're not, because it is a tie-dye, not necessarily like just a spiral. And these usually, this is a smaller cup. I'm used to working on like the 30 ounces, and those usually take me about, I want to say like 45 minutes maybe, just because there's so many colors. Once you get some of the colors laid out, it does tend to go a lot quicker. So don't get discouraged because how long I said it takes. And you could really use any colors. I've done a couple different color ones. I think this color combination goes really well together, and you don't really have to worry about the colors really mixing together and kind of making like a muddy shade of brown. Sorry, I'm trying to make it so you guys can see too. And I'm not worried 100% if all of these are, like I said, I want them to be kind of different and not regular. And that's how I'm going to do it for all of the colors. And they're going to overlap each other a little bit. That's why I'm starting with the lightest color. Hey! How you doing? I'm kind of nervous, sorry. This is like the biggest group I've ever done a live in. And you can see kind of on my paper how the inks, the longer they sit, kind of the thicker they get, because they start to evaporate a little bit, and it makes a much more vibrant color too. Yep, this is the tie-dye cup that we're going to use in the alcohol inks for. I've seen other people, a lot of people do them with acrylics as well. I haven't tried them with the acrylics. I've seen that you have to do quite a few layers on there, and I'm not 100% positive. They look gorgeous, but this is the way that I do it, and I just like how vibrant the inks are on there. Yeah, I've seen people do them with the markers. I haven't actually physically seen them. Are those really easy to use? I've never used them. I don't know how big the tips are on those and stuff. So then kind of as I go, I'm just gonna keep going like this. And like this, I have a little bit too much on there. So I'm just gonna skip over that part and not worry about it. And I'm gonna come back and I'll show you how to just kind of go over that area a little bit. So you kind of have like more defined lines in that spot. So it's not just like a solid yellow. How this part has, I don't know if you guys can see because it seems pretty glary. How these kind of have lines in them, and this is kind of just a flat yellow part. My inks dry quick. They do dry quick. That's why I'm in a second. I'm gonna go back here because these are already dry. But I kind of had to find like a happy little medium where my stuff wasn't dripping, but it wasn't so dry that it didn't really make a solid line. So now you can just kind of go back right here and I'll just go over it, and this is where you can kind of get your lines from. So see now how that area has lines in it now. Is anybody else having a hard time hearing? I hope not. These are just the single colors. Let me just finish this one little area and then I'll go over the colors that I'm using. And they're right out of the bottle. They're not mixed with anything. These are just two different brands. They're the Ranger brand and the Brie Reese inks. So then, because I can see my brush is starting to get a little bit dry, that's when I'm just going to add a little bit more in there. And I just barely touched the tip of my brush on there. No problem. If I miss anybody's questions too, I'll peek after so I can try to answer them, because I know sometimes it's hard to kind of catch everybody's comments. So see kind of how it's working out into a spiral. So I'm going to go up here, and actually it pretty much moves off the cup and then it comes back down way over here. So does anybody have any questions? I know, sorry, it's kind of a quiet one. So now that I'm going to be turning it more, that's why I like to have this on it, because I can hold this instead of having to hold my cup. Yeah, this is right over a matte white spray paint. I would suggest using matte versus a gloss because it's not going to soak in like you want it to if you try to do it on a gloss white. So these are just alcohol inks right out of the bottle, and I have them on parchment paper. And these are just like some skinny paintbrushes. I would definitely recommend, if you're going to be painting with them, to find a really, really thin one. And then I'm just barely, I don't know if you can see, I'm just barely putting the ink on the brush, and then just making the lines with it. And like I said, some people like to do this with acrylic paints as well. I think it's easier just to do one layer on it, but I know these can be really tricky too with the inks, but it's something you could just kind of play with and have a little bit of fun with, and just kind of try to figure out how to not make your brush super wet. That's why I suggest maybe having like a paper towel right there too, because if you get too little, you can always just add a little bit more ink on there. And I did these, actually I did do one in like fall colors, and it reminded me of like a mum. It kind of came out like a flower. So, I mean, you could definitely experiment and do them different colors too. They come out really cool. So as I'm going out, I'm getting wider with the brush strokes too. And so here's an example too right here. How I was saying, if you kind of get your brush with a little bit too much inks on it, and you can just go back, and if you go over the ink marks, it'll make some nice little lines in it for you, so that way you don't just have a solid yellow piece. And this one, I'm going to be doing the bottom of the cup too. So the same thing, I'm just going to take this, and it's going to spiral all the way down and up around it. Oh, that's awesome. You live in Germany. That's wicked cool. Yeah, some people are a little intimidated about how long it takes. Kind of the more you make, it goes a little bit faster. Like I said, the longest it takes is honestly laying out your first color, which in this case is the yellow. And then the more colors you get done, the faster it is to do, because the less area you actually have to cover with that color. And you don't have to worry about kind of laying out your road mark, your like road of the first lines, because it's already done. So you're just kind of following along with what you already did. I've never tried to mix alcohol with acrylic. I have seen people do it with just acrylic. And the process is basically the same, but I think, if I'm correct, I think they put a couple coats on. So like the yellow would be a couple coats of yellow. Yep, this is the tie-dye cup. Sorry, I had to reschedule it. It was a little bit crazy here yesterday. It was supposed to be yesterday. I had seen some people had thought that they had missed it, but I just had to reschedule. So, like I said, this part I'm gonna kind of eyeball it, and it's going farther apart right here as well. In order to make the part kind of wrap around the bottom. So I'll go like this, and then I'll actually get the bottom part, just so I can kind of get it off the top of the cup. And then I'm gonna turn it like this, and kind of make these pieces so they wrap around as well. Oh, see, Jillian, see, she used one coat. So maybe it depends on the paint that you use too, or just your technique, or the kind of base coat. Like, what kind of base coat did you use? Was it like a matte paint, or? So now I'm gonna try to make it so it's not awkward to do this, but so you guys can also kind of see what's going on. So now I have the bottom, and I'm just gonna go along this line as well for the bottom, and kind of try to make it so it kind of lines up with the rest of it. And the bottoms of them, you're gonna find you're not gonna have like a solid spiral, maybe of like a couple colors, but for the most part, they're gonna kind of be, all the ones I've done, they end up a few different colors kind of together. So I try to keep them kind of going with the spiral that I'm working on. And then I'm almost done with this one. And as soon as we get this yellow, so the yellow now is gonna come up over here, and then you can actually see how close they're gonna be. And that's what you want when you do the spiral in the back. That's fine. Give me 1 second, I'll show you the yellow. So the yellow is, this is the cadmium yellow, and this is the Brie Reese ones. I know everything's backwards. So 3 of those are the Brie Reese ones, and I'll tell you the colors again too as I open them and start using them. Because I know some people are just getting on, or, and the inks do dry fast. I just try not to get the oils from my hands all over the cups, or if there's a spot of ink that might not be dry, so you don't get your fingerprints with ink all over your cup. So I'm going to be going kind of even a little bit wider now, because I'm getting more towards the outside of it. And then the next color we're going to be doing is the orange, and we're actually going to start on the inside of this, and it's going to be overlapping the yellow a little bit. It is really vibrant. I do really like the Brie Reese ones. I found the colors are way vibrant, and those ones I got at Michael's. Like I was saying, they sell them in 3-packs, so I kind of wish they sold them individually, because sometimes there's colors that you don't really want in with the other ones. But I think it was like, I live in Connecticut. Here it was $10, I think, for 3 of them. Hello, hello. Yep, I have seen people do it with acrylic paints. It's basically the same process. Just the technique would be just a little bit different, pretty much the same. It would just be, I would think, kind of letting it dry before you start overlapping, because I don't know how long the acrylics would take to dry. So that's why I have so many brushes too. It's because I'm not going to be using this brush for anything else on this project, except for the yellow, because I don't want to have to worry about any of my other colors mixing with this color. So I'll just wash them after in a little cup of alcohol until the I'll do it a couple times until it comes out clean, and then I usually like wash them with Dawn just to make sure that they're clean. Hello, hello. We're doing a tie-dye tumbler with alcohol inks. Let me add. And like I said, if you guys are just catching on, don't be intimidated. The yellow takes the longest, or whatever color you do first. It will go faster, I promise. And the inks do dry quite fast. Right here is probably dry, but sometimes they stay tacky for a couple minutes. Not really tacky, but you can leave your fingerprints in them. So, because I'm not going to be covering this with glitter or anything, I just want to make sure that they're super dry before my fingers get anywhere near them. And then our yellow is pretty much done. I'm going to go over this part just a teeny tiny bit, just to kind of make those lines I was talking to you about earlier, because I kind of like them to have like little brush strokes on them. And you don't have to. You can put your own little spin on it. So I like to do the colors first. I like to go lightest to darkest in the parts that I can. So I'm going to do my yellow, then my orange, and then my magenta. And then on the outside part, I'm going to do my blues and my greens. That way, when I overlap the colors, they're not mixing on my paintbrush, because this is dry right now. But as soon as I make another ink go on top of it, that color is going to eventually end up on my brush, and I'll smudge it kind of in the colors. So I like to go with colors that aren't going to kind of get muddy with each other. Yep, there's a couple people that said that they did use the alcohol ink markers to do these. I just like using the paintbrushes. I haven't even tried it, honestly, with the markers, because I like painting these, but they do work. And then after, I like to let it dry. I would suggest, let me use a different brush, not like that one. I would suggest letting it dry at about 24 hours. If you try to seal this too soon, you could leave spots from the alcohol. You could also seal it with Mod Podge too. I've done both. I like spray sealing it better. Just do a couple of really light coats before you go with like a nice thick coat on it. So this color is orange, and this is the Brie Reese one as well. And then the same thing, I'm just gonna like barely get the brush wet. And as you kind of go, these pops are gonna drive me nuts. I need to move them, sorry. So when you're in the very middle, you want to get barely anything on your brush, because you don't really need any ink on that spot, just a teeny tiny bit. And then as you go out, you can kind of have a little bit more on there, so that way you don't have to worry about it. I'm just kind of going on the inside, and I don't know if you guys can see how I'm just overlapping the yellow a little bit. And then you can go back over it too if you want to make your brush strokes a little bit different or whatever the case might be. So that way, see, that's why I started with those two colors. So that way, the orange, even though I get it in the yellow, it's not going to make a difference as far as the colors mixing together. Oh, you're welcome. I'm glad that it makes you excited to try one. It makes me happy that I did this. I know I've posted a couple in here and people were asking for tutorials, and I love it when people make tutorials. They're fun to watch. Like I was saying, this is the biggest group I ever did one in, so I was a little bit nervous about doing it. And then I felt bad because I had to reschedule from yesterday, so I apologize. But I'm glad you're able to catch it, and if you guys can't catch the whole thing right now, I'll save it, so that way you guys can catch it and watch it whenever is convenient for you. But see how much faster it's going kind of once you get your first color laid out? Yes, I will save it. I probably put like a hashtag for like replay on here with like tie-dye. I'll hashtag the tie-dye too. So if you type that in the search bar, after this is over, you'll be able to watch it whenever you want. I know sometimes it's nice to be able to pause it, and if there's like a spot you missed, or to be able to fast forward if you have a question or whatever the case might be. Sometimes it's just more convenient like that, especially when you have like a longer tutorial. But yeah, as for the two different ink brands, I like them both for different reasons. The Brie Reese ones, the ones I'm using right now, they're extremely vibrant. And I know they're probably both the same consistency, but it seems like even though they're more vibrant, they are a little bit thinner. And I'm not sure, obviously they're two different companies, so I'm not too sure what the difference is, but they definitely, I believe, are more vibrant for sure. And And I believe it seems like they take a little bit longer to dry than the Ranger ones, the other ones that I'm going to be using. And like I said, if you feel like you may have gotten a little bit too much on there, it's fine, don't worry about it. Just leave it alone for a minute in that spot, and then you can just go back with it and make like your little strokes and stuff. I found kind of the more you play with a spot, the more it may do things that you don't want it to do. I don't know why I put the cap back on this, but I did. And you really don't need a lot for the whole cup. I mean, I only use a couple dots, and it does the whole cup, maybe like altogether like 5 dots per color, so you really don't need a ton of inks. And I've tried making my own homemade ones, and they seem to fade in the sun really, really fast. And with any kind of ink, you definitely want to make sure that you definitely use a UV protection. I would recommend even your sealer to have a UV protectant in it to help preserve the color in the inks, just so that way they last a long time and they stay nice and bright. I hope everybody's not having a hard time hearing me, because I'm sorry, I'm like right next to it, and my whole life everybody tells me I talk really quiet. So I'm super sorry if you can't hear me. I hope you can though. So the same thing, now that I'm getting towards the bottom, I'm gonna kind of just make it so it goes like that, and then kind of just wrap it around it. So see, and then it's gonna get like a really pretty like freeform tie-dye kind of bottom. Yes, definitely do it. You'll have fun, I promise. Like I said, the biggest thing is just don't get your brush too wet. It's always better not to have quite enough on there and add more versus adding a ton and not being able to take it off. Okay, good. I'm glad you can hear. I'm sorry if you guys, some of you can't. Maybe you can hear it better on the replay if you can't. Yeah, I've done this on a lot of 30 ounces. I've done it on the 20 ounce. I haven't done it on any skinnies. Because I'm not sure, I mean, I'm sure you could do it. I'm just not sure how the spiral would kind of lay out in it. I can kind of see it in my head, and I believe it would work fine. I just kind of like the contours of, as far as painting, like the cups that have like shapes to them. Thank you. Yes, it's alcohol ink. Right out of the bottle on a matte white cup with little paintbrushes. And then this is just parchment paper that I'm putting the inks on. And I don't know if, I hope you guys can see, I'm dragging right over the other color. That's why I was saying don't worry if this color isn't a solid line right here. You really, actually, it's kind of better if you don't have it a solid line. That way it seems to blend a lot better, because you don't really want any really like brash lines for a tie-dye, because it's supposed to be really kind of like organic. And then let me see, just double check. And then this is all I have left for the orange part. So as you can see, like I was saying, as you go on with your colors, they get faster and faster. And I have put, like after I do the tie-dye and seal it, I have put a little bit of like shimmery ultra fine glitter in my epoxy, and that comes out really, really pretty too. So if you guys wanted to do like a tie-dye like this and then add just a tiny bit of really, really fine glitter in your epoxy, it works wonderful as well. Yeah, it'll be saved on here, so you can watch it whenever you want. You could look up my name, or like I said, I'll do it. I'll put the hashtag tie-dye after I save the replay, so you can just put in hashtag tie-dye too, and it should pop right up for you. And then just like the other one, I'm just gonna kind of drag it up to the top. And then the orange is all done. So see how even just having two colors, it's making it kind of all tie together. So now that we're done with that guy, we're going to move to the magenta. And again, the magenta this is actually medium magenta. I'm gonna go get about the same size brush. I would recommend doing the lighter colors first. That way you're not mixing your colors. Actually, I can show you guys. So, like for example, on this right here, so if I take that, and so let me take a brush I'm not going to use. I don't like this one. Where is it? So this brush right here. So I'm going to take some of this magenta, and I'm going to mix it. Let's see if it'll work on here. This is the yellow that's all dried up. So if I take this and I'm making my tie-dye, my colors are going to mix together, and you're going to end up, your yellow is going to get wet again. And that's the same thing if you were to do it with any color. So if I took my blue and did it first, and then I did my yellow, my blue is going to get wet. Just from the alcohol, it's going to make the other color wet again. And you're going to end up with like a green from your brush strokes in your yellow. I don't know what I did with that other brush. It's okay. So again, just a nice skinny little brush. And then I'm going to start with my magenta. And this one I'm going to do on top of the orange. Because these are all colors that I can drag on top of each other and they're not going to kind of contaminate my other colors. Oh, thank you. So the yellow swirl I did the same thing I'm doing right now. I just kind of eyeballed it, and it is with alcohol inks and paintbrushes, just like I'm using right now, and some parchment paper. You can use, some people said they use like the same color pencil to kind of make a spiral, but I just kind of eyeballed it. Like I said, I get a little bit worried you are going to be able to see. I don't really like this paintbrush. I get a little bit worried you're going to be able to see the lines underneath it when you paint it. So I prefer not to make marks on it before that, because the inks, you can still kind of see the base coat through it. No problem. At least you know now why I didn't answer. Thank you. Yeah, I hope you guys try this. It is really fun, and I don't want you guys, I was kind of excited about doing this because everybody's, and even myself, like when I first tried this, I was kind of intimidated at the thought of, it seemed like it was going to be like really intimidating. And I want people just to kind of maybe go out of their comfort zone a little bit and have some fun with it. And I think this is definitely one of the things that it brings you out of your comfort zone, but once you start working on it, you feel really accomplished, and it kind of makes you want to go further. Thank you. I think I really like to, I really like using these like watercolors. They are a lot of fun to make like water scenes and stuff like that. Using like sponges, and like I said, they're nice too because you can spray alcohol on them, and it makes a really pretty effect as well. Yeah, I'll save it so you guys can catch the replay if you want to, because I know it's a longer one. It doesn't dry super fast, like too fast, but it does dry way faster than paint does. So like if I were to touch this right now, I could possibly leave like a fingerprint because it's not 100% dry, but for the most part it's dry. really digging this paintbrush. So this part right here, see how it's a little bit wetter than I wanted? So that's where I'll do kind of what I showed you guys earlier, how you can kind of just leave it alone for a minute, and then you can kind of go back over it. And the inks will kind of, it'll get that part wet again. So see, and you can kind of just add your little streaks in there, how you want them. Oh, I could imagine. That must be hard. Yeah, it's hard being a righty. I could imagine. But it does make it much easier leaving it on here because you can hold it whether you're a lefty or a righty. And not really, I really only touch it with my pinky. So I find it much easier so you're not actually having to really touch the cup too much. Yep, so this is, I prepped it like a regular tumbler. So it's sanded and washed and painted with matte white. I don't remember if it's Rust-Oleum or Krylon. I think it might be Rust-Oleum, the 2 times. And then that's all I did. I didn't resand or anything. Just definitely, I would recommend using a matte paint, not a gloss. Because like I said, your paints aren't gonna really have anything to soak into. And you're gonna end up with really, it's gonna be like really streaky because I've tried it before on gloss just to see kind of how it came out. Yep, I'm using a couple different kinds, but they're alcohol inks right out of the bottle. And just some paintbrushes. And then my brush is just, it's barely has any ink on it. Because if you put too much ink, it's gonna kind of like spider when you paint with it. It's gonna like spread and make little like jaggedy edges. So just, if you do that, just leave it alone for a second and you can go back to it and kind of spread it out. But definitely just let it kind of like dry for a minute and kind of evaporate a little bit. And it'll be a lot easier to try to alter it if you want. And then these little cracks too, they can be a little bit tricky because when you drag your brush, the ink tends to kind of want to go in there and spread. So when you go over those parts, just be a little bit more gentle so it's not kind of going in there and running all over the place. When you're using the lighter colors, it doesn't really matter as much, but you definitely don't want like this color like going in there and kind of running all the way across your cup and causing you problems. So the same thing, and because I'm coming more right here, I'm actually going to make this part of the spiral a little bit wider. Because this is wrapping around the cup, and that's too, so if you're doing this and it's not quite like a circle quite as much as you'd like it to be, this is the first time, it's the easiest way where you can kind of start to make it kind of more circular or whatever shape more so that you might want to make it, if it's not quite as circly and spiral like. So the same thing, I'm just going to take this and kind of go underneath that. And then we're almost done with this color. So we'll do a few of this. And then we'll tip it like this. Sorry, I'm trying to make it so you can see it too. So it's a little awkward. And so when I'm doing this too, I don't leave a lot of like white on here, but if there's like a little spot here and there that has a tiny bit of white on it, I wouldn't let it bother you too much, because even a real tie-dye, you can see whatever the base color might be, it's not 100% like saturating the whole entire product. There's going to be different colors and variations and shades of things. So definitely I wouldn't like stress out about it by any means. But I do try to cover a majority of it. So like right there, like I was saying, that's a little bit wetter than I would like it to be, so I'm not even going to touch right there right now. I'm just going to kind of skip ahead a little bit, and then I'll come back to there in a second. And now it's dried up a tiny bit, so I'll kind of take it, and this is where I'll kind of, because I still have some on my brush, so it's going to break up the whole like saturation part of it right there. And make it so it's not, it doesn't look like it's too wet right there. See? So then you got just like a really nice feathering right there. And you're good to go. Nope, this is just straight ink. This is just, I like to put it on parchment paper. I found, to me, that's the easiest in order to dip it in so it doesn't dry out. And you don't get too much on your brush at one time. I found that to be the easiest kind of thing to put it on. them both. Honestly, I do have another one I haven't really used too much. The Marabou ones, I'm still kind of playing around with those. But, I mean, honestly, I think the Brie Reese ones are more saturated. I did find if I tried to seal them with Mod Podge, because you can seal the inks with Mod Podge too, I found that it'll actually kind of change your brush colors. So if you guys are going to seal it with that, just be cautious with that. You might want to have a couple of brushes ready if you're going to seal them. But I have a lot of the Brie Reese ones because I do really like how vibrant they are. But I do really like how the Ranger ones, you can really like spray them with alcohol and you could do a lot to them without them getting kind of like sticky. No, this is just, this is a 20 ounce, just a standard 20 ounce. I don't know if you can see the shape of it. I don't think there's any fancy name for these ones. So let me just get a little bit more ink and then I'll be done with the magenta, and then we're actually going to be going on the outs right here on the magenta with the dark blue. Or I lied. I'm going to do the dark blue last. See? I'm going to go with the green right here on the outside. And if you guys want to, it makes it easier to kind of have a picture for reference, to kind of look at as you're doing it, to kind of visually kind of keep you kind of where you want to be with it. I found it does help. So let me just get this pink in here a little bit more. So that is with those 3 colors so far. And then we have 3 more. But like I said, there's not really too much cup left, so it'll go fairly fast. Alright, so now we're going to take the botanical, and this is going to go on the yellow. So again, if I put this on the magenta, it's going to turn all sorts of like muddy colors, and you don't want that. So that's why I put that on the outside, so it doesn't get all weird. So again, I'm just going to stick it on my paper. And then, let's see. I use this guy right here. I like the ones for this that have really skinny ends on them. They just, to me, they work much better. Especially when you're doing the little tiny spots. It's a lot easier to get just a tiny bit of ink on there versus getting like a whole bunch. So, same thing. I just want a little bit right here. So we're gonna just kind of take this guy and go like this. And I did notice about with the other brand, the Brie Reese ones, they do stay kind of like tacky longer. So just be careful if you're going to be like painting with them and stuff. As far as how long you wait to kind of like really touch them, without leaving fingerprints on them, because it's not gonna necessarily go all the way through, but it leaves like an indent, and you'll still see it after when you prime it and epoxy it. Thank you. Yeah, it kind of, like, it's fun. I hope everybody tries it, just like has a fun time with it. And they're all going to be different too. That's another thing that I like about it is when you do like the tie-dye and stuff like that, none of them are going to ever be the same. And that's, I think personally, that's what I like about it too, is that they're all going to come out different because they're hand painted. It's not from a machine and you made it. Sure, I can. I also put it in the events when I made, somebody had asked for the colors, so I also did put it in there as well. But I'll put the photo of the colors I used in there too. That way you can see if you want to look. And I've changed up the yellows a couple times. For a couple of my other ones, I used the Ranger yellow. This one personally I think is a lot more vibrant. I believe I used Sun Yellow for like the first and second one I did. And it's a really pretty color too, the Ranger Sun Yellow. But I think this one is a lot more vibrant. So it all kind of depends what you like. I'm going to turn this. And again, right here, I'm just going over it again because I don't really like how it was really wet, so there was no lines in it. And just by going over it again with a really dry brush, it'll just make those lines in it for you. Laura, I'm not sure if I already answered you. I know a couple of people had asked, which is totally fine. No, they're just regular inks, put right onto a piece of parchment paper. And then on just a matte white cup. Sorry, I don't want to miss any questions. Like I said, I'll peek after too to make sure that I didn't miss any, because I'm trying to answer the questions kind of like as I work, and sometimes I miss things. Yeah, I was thinking about trying the neon paints. I know some of that might be the brand as well. Most of the neons I've purchased as far as like acrylic paints have been pretty thin. So I don't know if maybe I should have tried like a thicker paint, I'm sure there's like pretty thick acrylics out there that would probably work pretty well. But I always seem to find them, they're kind of like a translucent color, and you could see the color like a lot in the background for the acrylics, especially with the neon colors. So like up here towards the top of it, I'm just going to kind of go in kind of like every here and there with the green, because it's kind of just skimming the top of the cup. Like where it is. And then it's going to continue back over here. And then, see, we really don't have much anything left on here. Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking too. I know that some people had said that they only use one layer, so I'm not sure if I'm just not trying the right paint. And then, so when we go back here, the green is going to be here and here because we're almost done. And they're actually going to overlap. And I like the way they overlap because it makes more texture. So I'll show you that as well as we're doing it, because they're definitely going to overlap. But I like that part. So again, I'll just go over that little area that was a little bit too wet, and then I have some good brush strokes. Sorry, I'm not liking these paintbrushes I picked out to use today. I have like certain ones I use, and these are like, I must have picked some of the wrong ones. Go figure. It's all good though. So the same thing, and I'm not really going to worry too much about overlapping here a lot. I just don't want it to get like crazy over there, but we're going to go over there. This is, like I said, this part is going to be green as well. So don't worry about getting like too close to your yellow, because the same color is going to go in that area too. Yeah, even if you guys have tried to use this with like acrylic, I would definitely suggest trying it with the inks, just to try something different too. I like working with inks a lot. I think they're really fun to work with, because there is really like a lot of different textures and stuff like that that you can do to them that you can't necessarily do with like acrylics or like spray paint and stuff like that. I think that's why I like them so much. So because we went on top of the yellow right here, the rest of them we went on above, so this part is actually going to go right here, and it's actually pretty much going to close off the bottom of this particular one. And like I said, right here, just be kind of like, I'm just going to go like that, so I don't really have to go over it too much, because I don't want it to go all the way up in my yellow big time, and kind of smear around the edge of it. Because then you'll just have a big green stuff going around the edge. Let me make it so you guys can see, hopefully. So right there, I'm just going to kind of bring it over here. And that's just kind of wrapping the other part around a little bit. And that's another thing too, like right here when I was doing my magenta, I think I may have flicked a couple of tiny baby specks, because I don't even see it, but it looks like there's a little bit of like magenta right here, and it's kind of spreading, so I'm just going to go over it a couple times, and it basically, it disappeared all the way, and it's only because the alcohol from the green made it wet again, pretty much. To simplify it. I don't know what other terms to put it in. But yeah, the alcohol will re-moisten it. So now I'm going to go up and it's going to overlap, and there's going to be a tiny bit right here that's opened. And that's where we're going to go with the last color that's going to be on this side. Thank you, thank you. So I know my yellow is dry, so I'm going to kind of put my palm there just a tiny bit. But I'm not going to touch this green yet, just because it could be tacky a tiny bit still. And then right here, I have a tiny bit of white right there. And I'll probably, when I go around with the blue right here, I'll probably hit just a couple tiny spots and like the top and the bottom with the blue that I'm going to go around with. So I'm not even going to worry about that. But see how neat it looks when it kind of like overlaps like that? Make it a little bit more. Thank you. I do, yeah, you can PM me, and I can let you know if you'd like. Thank you. And then we're almost done with the green. And then if you guys have stuck in there this long, we're like on the home stretch. Yep, these are alcohol inks. They're right out of the bottle, and I put them on parchment paper. And then I'm just using a small paintbrush to apply them. And just like a minute amount of ink. Super tiny bit. All right, and then let's see. I want to add a little bit more green right here, just in the middle part. I haven't tried acrylic. I see a lot of people have tried it and they like it. I like doing this. I honestly haven't tried it with the acrylic paint. I personally think, in my head, I thought this would be quicker. That's initially why I had tried it. That way I only had to do one layer of paint. I guess that kind of depends. Some people like different things better, or it's easier for other people. But I would definitely say, if you're not sure, definitely to check it out on both ways, and let everybody know. I was thinking about trying it with acrylic, just myself, so I could see what I thought might be a little bit easier. So this part right here, I kind of want to go up a little bit more. So before I do this last part, I'm going to take my magenta and just go up on there just a tiny bit. No, I totally get it. That's totally fine. Yeah, I'm going to save it that way, because I know sometimes people can't watch things when they're live and stuff, but I'll totally save it. That way you can watch it whenever you want to. So this part, I'm just going to take this and kind of drag it over, and like I said before, it'll make the ink sweat again, and then you don't even see kind of where the strokes were before. So then I just made it a little bit bigger right there. And now we will go on to, let me see. So now we're gonna do, what are we doing? We're gonna do this color. And this color, because it's the darker color, is gonna go over the magenta. So let's see. I'm gonna take this guy right here. I love, love, love this color. Alright, so I'm going on the inside. So this is going to be right here. And don't worry if you have like a little circle left over right there, because we're going to go in that one little spot, and we're going to add that little blue that's left. Because like I said, they never come out 100% the same. There's going to be certain areas that are going to be different sizes on your cups, or not necessarily 100% like circular or symmetrical, or however you want to phrase it, but that's kind of how they're supposed to be. Like, tie-dyes they're not perfect like that. No problem. This is actually indigo. See, this is the Ranger brand. It's indigo. And this is gonna go and mix a tiny bit with my magenta, which I'm fine with. But all I'm gonna do, so it doesn't turn too purple and it stays basically the same shade, is every now and then I'm just gonna take it and dip it in my ink and then kind of brush it off like that. And that's to kind of get off the excess that mixed with the other ones. So that way it kind of stays that nice dark shade of indigo. And this one is going to kind of be, so the spiral kind of goes in front of the blue. So it's going to kind of, I'm just going to make it so it looks like it's visually kind of like, sort of like behind the green a little bit. Hey, how you doing? And then, so I'm just making it so it kind of meets up with the green and then kind of like goes into where the magenta is. And then this part right here will probably bring that green down just a tiny bit. And then we'll add that light blue right in the middle part of it. So see how adding the blue definitely, it just kind of like ties everything together. And then, actually here, I'll show you guys right now. So we're gonna take this green part right here and we're gonna kind of, still have some green on here from before. So we're just gonna kind of bring this down a little bit. Just so that way it kind of gives, it'll kind of bring it together right there. So now when I add the blue in the middle, it's gonna make it pretty much complete instead of looking like it's not really like a circle down there. Oh, keep trying. It's fun. I'm sure yours are gorgeous. Everybody's their own worst critic. Just keep playing with it. I want to do this on something like big, like besides a cup. It seems like it would be really fun too, like on my table or something. I have a really nice square table. Maybe it would be fun to do that with this on there. And depending on the angle, some of your strokes, they might kind of like carve a little bit, just because they carve the cup, but don't worry about it, just kind of go with it. Oh, that would be awesome, a side table. That would be wicked awesome. So right here in this little crease, I'm just going to kind of go like this anyways. You're not going to see it once I put the strokes over it, but that way it's not like white in there. But you won't see like the actual solid line I just put in there. Oh, sorry. I don't think you guys could see what I was doing. Oops. In case you couldn't see, all I did was just put a thin line with the inks right there. That way when I went like this, I didn't have to worry about getting a ton in there so it doesn't kind of circle its way around the cup. Well, that's good to hear. I was worried I was putting some people to sleep. It's really therapeutic to do it too. It's really relaxing. Like surprisingly relaxing. And we only really have a teeny tiny bit left to do too, so. And these parts I'm actually going to be doing that light blue. Sorry, I keep moving it. It's quicker to do it at, like if you turn your cup a certain angle, it's a lot faster. You can get a lot more and a lot quicker. Not like I'm in a hurry, but it's just a lot more comfortable to kind of move a little quicker. If that makes sense. Let me add just a little bit more. Some of your colors you're going to find are going to kind of get thicker on your paper, and that's totally fine. You could just add a little bit more ink and it'll make it so it's not kind of really thick. And I like it when it gets thick. It just makes your color a lot more saturated, but sometimes they just get a little too much going on. All right, so now we have the indigo, and now we just have a tiny bit left to do. So we're gonna do this little piece right here, and then these right there. So we'll be done in like 5 minutes. So we're almost there. So I'm gonna take the last color, and depending on how I do it, I usually have, this is the first time I think I've done a 20 ounce. Usually it's like 30s and stuff, and I've done like a 10 ounce and the curves and all that. So based on like the shape of your cup and the size and how big you make the spirals, that's why I usually always fit this many colors. Sometimes you could fit more, sometimes less. So always have just a couple extra, just in case you make your whole thing and you have like a little spot like this, or whatever the case might be. That way you're not wondering maybe what you should stick in the hole. So I'm gonna let this sit until tomorrow, and I'm gonna seal this. Let me see. I'm gonna seal this with some clear spray paint that has UV protection in it. I'm gonna do a couple super thin light coats on it. That way you don't get little alcohol speckles all over it. And then after those dry good, I'll probably put one good coat on it. Because if you apply epoxy right on top of inks, sometimes they can run or fade, and they do really weird things that you might not want. So I would definitely recommend sealing this. And like I said, you can use Mod Podge. That does work as well. Just be mindful because the magentas and some of the really rich colors, sometimes when you're painting, you may want to have a couple of Mod Podge brushes ready, because the magenta and stuff will sometimes start to get into your Mod Podge, and it'll make your Mod Podge pink, so it won't dry totally clear. So this guy right here, I'm just going to kind of go like this, and like I said before, because I am going over a darker color, I'm just going to kind of be mindful of dragging it over it, because it is going to make this lighter blue have a little bit of the darker blue inside of it. So see what a difference just adding that little teeny tiny bit in the middle does. So now I'm going to do this part right here. And this part I'm not really going to worry too much about. The colors shouldn't really move around too much as far as the colors blending and stuff. And we're not adding a ton on here either. It's just going to be in a couple little areas. And then we'll just finish up this little spot on the bottom. So right here, it kind of got a little bit green, which is fine. But see, I'll just take my blue after I cleaned it off and I went back over it, and now it's a nice blue color. I don't have any more of that green tint kind of in there. But see how cool it looks with the strokes on it? I really love just like the texture the inks kind of give with adding that in there. And then I think we are done. So this is what we have. And I hope you guys can see it okay. And it's just my thing that looks really dark. But that's the front, and then that's the back. And then this is how the bottom looks. So if you're still awake, thank you for joining me. And I hope that you guys try this, because it's really relaxing, and hopefully it'll kind of get you to try other things with inks as well. So you're just tuning in. So this is alcohol inks that I applied on a matte white tumbler. And I'll save the live that's going on right now. I'll save that, and I'll do a hashtag tie-dye, and I'll do a hashtag replay. That way you guys can catch it if you decide that you want to check it out, or whatever the case might be. So I hope, and then if you guys make one, it'd be awesome, and post it so I can see that you watched this. So thank you so much for joining me too. And if you have any more questions, you can ask them in this link after, if you're catching the replay and you're curious, or you can always PM me and ask too, and I will do my best to try to answer it as soon as I can for you. And so like I said with this, make sure that you let it dry really well before you seal it. Otherwise the alcohol from the aerosol is going to make little speckles all over your cup. Do a couple really thin light coats and let them dry in between. And then after you have a couple nice light coats on there, you can do a nice coat and let it seal real awesome. So I hope you have a fantastic night, and hopefully this will give you something to do during quarantine. Alright, have an awesome one.